Akaroa is a small town on Banks Peninsula in the Canterbury region of the South Island of New Zealand, situated within a harbour of the same name. The name Akaroa is Kāi Tahu Māori for Long Harbour, which would be spelled Whangaroa in Standard Maori. Overview: Akaroa is 84 kilometres by road from Christchurch and is the terminus of State Highway 75. In the 2006 New Zealand Census of Population and Dwellings, the permanent population was 567, a decrease of 7 since 2001. The town has a high ratio of residents aged over 65. It is set on sheltered harbour and is overlooked and surrounded by the remnants of a Miocene volcano. Akaroa is a popular resort town, and in summer the temporary population can reach 15,000, which places stress on the summer water supply, which is entirely dependent upon rainfall on the hills. Many hectares dolphins may be found within Akaroa Harbour, and swim with the dolphins as boat tours are a major tourist attraction. History: in 1830, the Maori settlement at Takapuna, just east of the current town of Akaroa, became the scene of a notorious incident. The captain of the British brig Elizabeth, John Stuart, helped North Island Ngāti Toa chief Te Rauparaha to capture the local Kāi Tahu chief, Tamaharanui, his wife Te Whe, and his young daughter Roe Mata. The settlement of Takapuna was sacked. Concern over the complicity of John Stuart, amongst other lawlessness among Europeans in New Zealand, led to the appointment of an official British resident, James Busby, to New Zealand in 1832, the first step in the British involvement that led to the Treaty of Waitangi. In 1832, Te Rauparaha, fresh from his successful 3-month siege of Kaiapoi, took the power on the Onawi Peninsula at the head of Akaroa Harbour. English settlement. After constantly refusing to recognise New Zealand as a British colony, the Crown issued an imperial proclamation on the 15th of June 1839, which cited New Zealand as part of the British realm. After being informed of the French intent to colonise Akaroa and use further as a whaling port, the English ship Britomart was dispatched in order to proclaim sovereignty for the Crown. The Britomart arrived in Akaroa on the 16th of August. Captain Stanley raised the British flag and held a court at each of the occupied settlements. James Robinson Clough, also known as Jimmy Robinson, had arrived at Akaroa several years before. He acted as interpreter for Captain Owen Stanley at the flag-raising of 1840, and was the first Pākehā to travel up the River Avon in 1843. Mr. Robinson Clough's descendants are still prominent on the peninsula today. The following English immigrants settled in both Akaroa and German Bay, along with many German farmers who set up dairy, sheep and cocksfoot farms. The great majority of the artifacts currently held at Akaroa Museum are of the early farming community and the lifestyle of the time. French settlement. In 1838, Captain Jean-François Longlua made a provisional purchase of land in the Greater Banks Peninsula from Tuaranau. A deposit of commodities in the value of £6 was paid, and a further £234 worth of commodities was to be paid at a later period. On his return to France, he advertised for settlers to come to New Zealand and ceded his interest in the land to the Nato Bordelais Company, of which he became a part owner. On the 9th of March 1840, 63 emigrants left from Rochefort. The settlers embarked on the Comte de Paris, an old man-of-war ship given to them by the French government, for New Zealand. The Comte de Paris and its companion ship the Auber, captained by Commodore Charles-François Levord, arrived in the Bay of Islands in the North Island on the 11th of July 1840, where they discovered that the Banks Peninsula had been claimed by the British. The French arrived in Akaroa on the 18th of August and established a settlement. The area still has a French influence reflected in many local place names. Before 1840, the area of the current Akaroa town was also known as Whangaroa, and the subsequent French settlement was known as Port Louis Philippe, named after the French king of the time. Notable residents: Bob Parker, former mayor of Banks Peninsula and former resident; Hugh Wilson, botanist living at Inawai Reserve over the hill from Akaroa; Frank Worsley, sailor and explorer who served on Ernest Shackleton's Imperial Transantarctic Expedition of 1914 to 1916 as captain of the Endurance.